So James had recently a Fraser Hill session. Maybe James, you would like to just tell us a little bit about that?
Salam, brother. Yeah, I think you already. I haven't wrote my report yet. There was feedback only. But very interesting. This group. Since the starting day until we went to Fraser, until the day, a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, a lot of obstacles. Never expect the hotel say, oh, the finishing the hotel under repair, so cannot stay there. So we look for other place, found Silver Park, So Silver Park, luckily we found 3 apartments, Small miracle happen. For example, initially we have 26 people. Then in the end, actually 24 confirmed. So luckily there was a drop in 2% because why? The lady apartment, there was one apartment supposed to be 7 people. I miscalculated. It's for 6 people only. So one came out no bed, So they were making a lot of noise, Then luckily the other apartment, because of one of them didn't come, they have extra 1 bed. Exactly, fully packed. We can't even give another apartment, And then another brother also very interesting, his senior just recovered. So the men's side, there is one that is single bed. So I also hope that he will stay in the single because senior and then just recover. So stay in the single bed. So he was praying very hard for the single bed. But somehow because we were so busy everything, he was like the 3rd person going. People really occupied the single bed. So what happened was, instead of single bed, the arrangement was in such an incredible way that this brother got a twin, queen bed, and 1 person stay. Incredible, Swami, the way he arranged the thing. Actually, it's beyond our understanding. So anyway, this group are very mature people. 24, I think at least 20 old people are all seniors and are site devotees, very knowledgeable, very knowledgeable. The beauty is we are supposed to cancel this because of the hotel can't provide the room, right? So I also told Swami, let's cancel it since I can't get, But before I can cancel it, I phoned the Singaporean. I said, is it possible for you to change the date or postpone the date, He said they bought the special fare ticket, cannot change, So 7 of them have to continue, That's why we started to do a lot of homework to get the meal ready, to get the room ready, get the apartment ready. Wow, it was really a big challenge because in Fraser Hill, you don't usually get vegetarian meal. Then the beauty was, so the beauty was the chanting, the meditation. We have been there a few times already, right? Before COVID, for a few years we were there. This group was entirely different now. The chanting vibration was very, very beautiful. And then meditation, the vibration energy was very good. So everyone was very happy. The reason I think is because this group are very special people, very knowledgeable, spiritual, mature, spiritually mature. That's why the chanting meditation totally different from all our previous meditation retreat. And because there are so many challenges, these brothers and sisters are so mature, they understand each other, and then they give and take. And then they were so bonded, even more bonded, They were so happy to know each other, So it was actually a miracle. The retreat was actually a miracle. But since the day the hotel said they can't give us, until the day we arrived in Fraser, the heart cannot rest. You just have to do whatever you can do. Of course, praying to Swami to guide. So in the end, actually, Swami guided everything. It was a very beautiful retreat. Everyone was so happy. Sairam.
So Sairam, James, thank you so much. A beautiful experience that you have had. Good, nice. Let's proceed. Last week we had Dr. Sabitan.
Saram, everyone.
Saram.
Share. Oops.
Sabitan, how come your screen is so clear? Is it because of your meditation or what?
I'm not sure. There's always been the same. Let me see. Okay. Okay. Are you able to see the slide? Can I? Okay, so welcome back. Just before we start, let's maybe take some time to just sit with this sense of gratitude, just thanking Bhagavan for all that he has showered on us, for all the difficult times in our life where he has actually showered grace and made himself known and made his presence known to our awareness. And again, thanking Swami for giving us this opportunity to convene in this manner. Not many will have this opportunity. It takes lifetimes to just come together in this way and be so humbled by all the individuals here, learned individuals here who are sharing their opinions, their thoughts. And jnana is so widely shared and so well received in these sessions. So, my humble pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved Guru, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. And with this, welcome everyone again for our satsang. It's wonderful, and I'm not sure about the rest, but I always look for Tuesdays. It's wonderful it's a wonderful day for me because one of the main part of Tuesday is our Tuesday satsangs. Okay, so let's go back to our topic. I is the first sound emanating from Atma. So I guess we have covered Krishna's dialogue with Arjuna, and we had our wonderful sisters from the group to read out the dialogue. And then we briefly touched on mind, the Mahamaya, and how mind kind of blocks or obstructs the vision of the Atmic vision that we are supposed to perfectionalize and to work on becoming that, right? So, and then moving forward, how do we differentiate?
Sabitan, can you make the wording bigger, the picture bigger? Can't see the wording, very small.
Oh, okay. Because I was just doing a recap, so I didn't maximize it. Sure. Can you see now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, so then we went through this, the difference between Nityatma and also Atma, and how mind actually hinders the realization. And then we moved on to how to differentiate the other differentiating factors as well, right? Like the true I versus the false I, and how to differentiate the ego and I as the primordial sound. So now we will go through the second part of this presentation, where Swami actually speaks on from Brahman to Brahman. How do we all came from Brahman, and we are all in the journey to merge in Brahman itself. So now let's maybe start off our satsang by just relaxing into this song. And the invitation here is to go through, as much as you are enjoying the song, the rendition, just go through the meaning. It is there in English. Go through the meaning as we enjoy this rendition.
When you're calling a teammate. Brahmamukate para brahmamukate brahmamukate para brahmamukate brahmamukate para brahmamukate tandanana hi tandanana pure tandanana hi tandanana pure tandanana bhala tandanana brahmamukate para brahmamukate para brahmamukate para brahmamukate tandanana hi tandanana pure tandanana bhala tandanana bhala tandanana bhala tandanana కందువ గుహీనాధికములిందు లేదు అందరికి శ్రీహరే అంతరాత్మ కందువ గుహీనాధికములిందు లేదు అందరికి శ్రీహరే అంతరాత్మ హరే అంతరాత్మ శ్రీహరే అంతరాత్మ ఇందులో జంతు కులమింతానొకటే అందరికి శ్రీహరే అంతరాత్మ ఇందులో జంతు కులమింతానొకటే అందరికి శ్రీహరే అంతరాత్మ హరే అంతరాత్మ శ్రీహరే అంతరాత్మ తందనానా హే తందనానా పురే తందనానా భళ తందనానా భళ తందనానా భళ తందనానా నిండార రాజుని బ్రింజుని త్రయునొకటే అంటనే బంటు నిద్ర నదియునొకటే నిండార రాజుని బ్రింజుని త్రయునొకటే అంటనే బంటు నిద్ర నదియునొకటే మెండైన బ్రాహ్మణుడు మెట్టు భూమి ఒకటే చండాలుడుండేటి సరి భూమి ఒకటే మెండైన బ్రాహ్మణుడు మెట్టు భూమి ఒకటే చండాలుడుండేటి సరి భూమి ఒకటే సరి భూమి ఒకటే సరి భూమి ఒకటే తందనానా హి తందనానా పురే తందనానా భళ తందనానా భళ తందనానా భళ తందనానా కడగి ఏనుగు మీద కాయు ఎండొకటే ఉడమి సునకము మీద కొలయు ఎండొకటే కడగి ఏనుగు మీద కాయు ఎండొకటే ఉడమి సునకము
Okay, Saira, welcome back. I hope all of you all enjoyed the rendition. So now we're just going to open the discussion to the floor. So there were a few examples in the song which were given. Few examples of why Brahman is one. So Brahma Okate means one. So what examples did they use? Anyone? Or what is your understanding of the song just based on what you've read? You may just unmute and share your insights.
It says,
Sai Ram.
Sairam, it says
Sai Ram.
about the oneness in all.
Yeah.
The five elements are for all, not for any chosen people. So, yeah, Brahma is also like that. Brahma is also same. When it is in you and me and everybody is the same Atma is there. There's no difference. So, when the God is like that, He is for all, whether they are rich or poor, educated or not educated. So, the Brahma is for all in one in all and all in one. That's what I understood from this. There's no difference. Sai Ram.
Fantastic. Sai Ram, sir. Fantastic, sister. Anyone else who would like to share their insights?
Sai Ram, brother, same thing I wanted to say. Actually, the earth, the sky, and the whole creation is one. And also the people, the untouchables, and all else, everyone is one. Brahman.
Yeah.
God is one, and Brahman is one. That is what I also understood.
Thank you, sister. Thank you, sister. Wonderful. So if you look at it, the examples that they use, high or low, there's no difference, right? So Brahman knows no high or low. So the high or low is a form. If you look at it, there is what the song is trying to dismiss here is duality, right? High and low, king and pauper, right? Elephant and a street dog. So the song is trying to dismiss all forms of duality and is saying how the sun shines the same for an elephant as well as a street dog. How the dream appears to a king, similarly it appears to a beggar. So what the gist of this rendition is like exactly what Sister Rajeshwari and Sister Shanta mentioned just now, that the Brahman is all encompassing and it knows no bounds, right? And you are that very essence of Brahman itself. And we should try to eliminate all forms of duality from our thinking, though it can be very challenging at times, especially in our life, but we should try. And the first step to do that is distancing your self from the body and the mind complex. And once you're able to distance yourself from the body and mind complex, when you sit quietly in silence, you should be able to slowly and tactfully remove this sense of duality. So the mind becomes more and more clear. And then eventually the cloud dissipates, because cloud is formed by water, right? And all this water clumps together and it appears to block the sun. But it does not know that the sun is so hot and it's so radiating and so um, so powerful in nature that even the droplets which form the cloud will evaporate and vanish in no time. So similarly, when we take this step for our inward discovery to move within ourselves, not move externally, but move within ourselves, then we will realize that everything is Brahman and there's only one which exists. And you are that one. So Swami goes on to explain this from Brahman to Brahman. Swami says that the mind, the buddhi, the chitta and ahamkara. Okay, so ahamkara is the ego, right? So this is all from the mind stuff, right? The mind, the buddhi is the intellect, and chitta is the mind stuff. From where did they originate? How did they grow? And where do they merge themselves? This is a question posed by Swami in his talk, right? And then Swami goes on to explain that is the Brahman and that is the Atma. That being the case, how can you discover your source or your true self by searching for it elsewhere than within you? See this, see how he asks a question and then he kind of prompts us and then he gives you another question for you to go inward. You see, he starts by saying that the buddhi, chitta, ahankara, where did they originate from? Where do they grow? Where do they merge themselves? Like when you look at it, just from an awareness point of view, just noticing awareness point of view, not to say awareness, just noticing awareness point of view, when you start to notice the vagaries of the mind and the aspects of the mind, you will notice all these components which are mentioned here, right? However, we won't know where did they originate from or how do they grow. And of course, sometimes if you are aware, as your awareness expands, you will realize how do they grow. But we don't know where do they merge themselves, right? So then Swami says that is the Brahman and that is the Atma. So then he goes on to explain, if that is the case, how can you discover source or your true self by searching for it elsewhere than within you? So this is a wonderful question here. So if we are performing sadhanas or any acts which moves away from self-discovery or moves away from the inward vision, then we ought to perhaps revise that method, or maybe it's time to reflect. Now let's move on. So then Swami goes on to say that unity that underlies the apparent diversity. Okay. So just before we move to this, anyone has any question regarding this short statement by Swami here? Oh yes.
Can I say something?
Of course, of course.
You see, this mind, buddhi, chitta, and ahankara together are called the antakaranas. These are the inner instruments of a human being. So if you see, they're coming in from the external, goes on to the mind, which is still very raw, mind plus thought, and then the judgment, distinction, and discrimination goes back to the buddhi. From the buddhi, it goes back to the chitta. All these are functionalities of the same consciousness, which arose, like in the earlier portion, the Om. It arose from the Brahman and as manifested in different various forms so that you go back into that Brahman. Like Swami says, how can you discover your source or your true self? By searching for it elsewhere. Now, when you say you want to go within, and if you're doing a sadhana, any sadhana for that matter, the sadhana has to be such that you drop everything from the outside to the mind, to the buddhi, to the chitta, and finally come back to the primary consciousness, which Swami says is the Atma. That is the Brahman. So that's it, brother. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sister Purnima. Wonderful sharing. You're extremely right.
Sairam.
Sairam, Brother James. Go ahead.
So the sadhana that all of us do is a lot are outward. Then there is also the inward. So it's the outward that help the inward. So the outward is like when you do seva, you do prayers, you do chanting, all that, concentration, all that. But then you purify yourself. so that when you do the meditation going inward, it will help in your meditation a lot, because those are the foundation. Without the foundation of purity, love, compassion, mercy, it's difficult to go inward, even if you are meditator. Because in the end, you have to surrender and actually give up everything, totally detached, to flow inward. So it's from outward to inward. So the outward also help the inward. Of course, the inward is important. From my experience, is practice the inward and also practice outward. It will help a lot for you to grow inward. Sairam.
Of course, that's you're extremely right. I think from that perspective, it's still inward. But what I mentioned is, sometimes people can get so engrossed in rituals and other things to an extent that the spiritual ego takes over and it becomes a completely outward direction. So then you're moving away from your inward vision whenever your spiritual ego takes over. So in that sense, we have to be very mindful of our spiritual ego. I think Professor Suresh Anne has said so many times in our satsang that we have to be really mindful of our spiritual ego. As we progress spiritually, this ego will start to show itself and manifest itself in various ways. And when it does, we have to first be able to pick it up. And once we're able to pick it up, then we should be able to handle it. However, there are people who just flow with that spiritual ego, thinking that it's true, and might end up in a different pit hole. So what we are trying to do here is all the sadhanas that Swami has prescribed, they are all actually like what Brother James mentioned, Sister Purnima mentioned, they're all helping us to move inwards. And not only the sadhanas, maybe some of you here don't practice regularly, and that's completely fine. It's your own rightness and it's your own personal journey. There's no one to judge you on that. But having said that, even if you don't practice your sadhanas, sometimes life experiences itself can be so intense that you cannot stand with the external environment, that it just pushes you within yourself. And so it can happen in various ways, not necessarily just through sadhana that you gain your inward vision, but this can be done or due to multifarious factors. And I would say nothing is possible without the grace of Bhagavan, the grace of Swami itself. So making sure that at every point of time, purifying yourself, keeping the mind in a more purified manner, watching our words, watching our action, watching our deeds, watching our thoughts, watching our habits. So while watching this, what you are doing eventually is that you don't have to pay 1,000 or 2,000 ringgit to go and do chitta suddhi and try to purify yourself. You can just do it by being more aware of yourself. You can just be more aware of your mind stuff. You can be more aware of all this, what Swami asks us to watch. So watch all of it and then eliminate it. Eliminate what does not facilitate your inward vision. Whatever does not facilitate, and how do you know it? This is when you know this is when your conscience will speak. When your conscience speaks, you will know. Like what Swami says, your conscience will never be wrong. Like there was one video in YouTube recently where Swami was addressing the college students, the medical college, the engineering college student in one of the occasions, a graduation ceremony. I'm not very sure of the occasion, but he says that he was addressing the students. He said that he says, students, when you leave the campus and when you start working, there will come circumstances will come, and those circumstances will require you to utter a lie, and those circumstances might acquire you to act not in line or not in keeping with our dharma. of Sanatana Dharma. So when he said when those situations
cost and then
he says when those situation comes before you, what you should do is that no matter what happens, do not let go of dharma, do not let go of the truth. So you have to be truthful. And he goes on, he takes one step further and even explains how you can be truthful, how you know whether you're following the right path or not. Listen to your conscience. If your conscience says yes, you should look at his demeanor when somebody says these statements. It's very interesting. He said, if your conscience says yes, just do it. Say just. There's no doubt. If your conscience says yes, just go ahead and do it. But sometimes, just like how the mind obstructs the Atmic vision, the mind also will obstruct your conscience. And when the mind, this is because we are too indulged in the thinking process itself, the overthinking, which leads to anxiety and panic attack and all whatever comes from that. So trying to let go of thinking, trying to notice that, oh, thinking is happening, and then just, oh, okay, thinking is happening. So let go of it. There's no necessity for you to participate in the thinking. You can just ignore the thinking itself. Okay, and then eventually the mind will lose its power on you, and the distance will be more, the distance will grow, and eventually you will start to realize this Atmic vision within yourself. Okay, so thank you so much for the insights and sharing. So now let's move on to the second part. So then Swami goes on to explain that unity that underlies the apparent diversity. Okay, so in this statement is a very strong statement, especially if you are living in Malaysia, right? So in Malaysia, we are well accustomed to the term Satu Malaysia. Satu Malaysia for our foreign participants who are here today with us. Satu Malaysia in Malay language means one Malaysia, which it's a blanket statement which says that regardless of the race, the culture, the ethnicity that you come from, we are all just one Malaysia. So similarly, though we may be different from our skin color, our personality, our virtues, our traits, the upbringing, the culture, so our vasanas, so many things, we are so different in so many ways, to an extent that people start to view individuals as being unique because we are so different to each other. And that uniqueness is why creation is just so it's just speechless, because this trait, this uniqueness, when you see one flower from the other and one leaf from the other, and one earthworm species to another, in nature, you start to realize that how did creation come about, and why is one species so unique? And you can take lifetimes just to study one species, and even then you might not even fully establish knowledge on one very species, maybe one insect. So that's how interesting creation is, and how beautiful it is. It's just that sometimes the mind just clouds this beauty because of as I mentioned, overthinking and unnecessary contemplation. So now, before we move on to this, how do we find out this unity, right? Because we are all moving towards Brahmanyana, or we're trying to find out this oneness. How can we merge ourselves with oneness? How can we experience this? Not just intellectually, but from an experiential point of view. So I think I've played this before, this poem by Swami, but it's just very beautiful. I think one of his best poems. So let's just enjoy this before we move on to the other interesting theoretical part of this.
చుక్కలన్నీయు బ్రహ్మ చుక్కలన్నీయు బ్రహ్మ సూర్యుండు అది బ్రహ్మ చుక్కలన్నీయు బ్రహ్మ సూర్యుండు అది బ్రహ్మ చంద్రుడన్నను బ్రహ్మ జలము బ్రహ్మ చంద్రుడన్నను బ్రహ్మ జలము బ్రహ్మ స్వర్గమన్నను బ్రహ్మ వైకుంఠమది బ్రహ్మ స్వర్గమన్నది బ్రహ్మ వైకుంఠమది బ్రహ్మ తల్లి అన్నను బ్రహ్మ తండ్రి బ్రహ్మ భాగ్యమన్నను బ్రహ్మ వాలభ్యమది బ్రహ్మ జీవరాశులు బ్రహ్మ జీవి బ్రహ్మ పుట్టించుటది బ్రహ్మ పోషించుటది బ్రహ్మ పుట్టించుటది బ్రహ్మ పోషించుటది బ్రహ్మ గిట్టించుటది బ్రహ్మ గృహిణి బ్రహ్మ కర్మలన్నీయు బ్రహ్మ కర్మలన్నీయు బ్రహ్మ కాయంబు బ్రహ్మ ప్రకృతి అంతయు బ్రహ్మ ప్రాణంబు అది బ్రహ్మ ప్రకృతి అంతయు బ్రహ్మ ప్రాణంబు అది బ్రహ్మ సర్వమంతయు బ్రహ్మ ఈ సభయు బ్రహ్మ సత్యమును తెలుపునట్టి ఈ సాయి బ్రహ్మ సత్యమును తెలుపునట్టి ఈ సాయి బ్రహ్మ
What a beautiful poem. How Swami starts off by giving examples of what is Brahma, and finally he, in his own realized state, that he and Brahma is one, and we are all aspiring to move towards that. It's just so beautiful. It's just speechless. So anyway, so moving forward, so here are a few concepts, right? Like, the reason I have decided to change the way I present this time is because we will have concepts and then we can open for discussion. So it'll be easier that we're more engaging in that sense. So the first part of this unity that underlies the apparent diversity, right, is oneness beyond duality. So then Swami talks about the underlying unity behind the apparent diversity of the world. We are like reflections in a mirror, all part of the same source. We are like reflections in a mirror, all part of the same source. Okay, so now let's open this up to the floor and maybe get one or two of you to share what do you think this statement means. We are all like reflections in a mirror, all part of the same source. You may just unmute and don't feel shy, don't feel anything, just no high lows here, just everyone is equal. Anyone?
Saram Sapitan, the third line, eliminating the mind, right? Treasure spiritual practice, sadhana are seen as insufficient for ultimate realization. The goal is not just a calm mind, but complete elimination of the thought process itself. Then probably only explain experience the formless God, the silent, the bliss. So to get rid of this mind, right, we need to practice a sadhana, and I think most of us will agree. The only way to reach the no mind is through meditation. That's what I understand now. To meditation, to years of practice, you reach. Of course, the other sadhana are very important. I say they are the foundation to help your meditation to evolve to that level. So, although the technique is very simple, like you say, who am I? So simple only. But then it takes no matter how many years before we can reach the silent, the bliss, to totally no thoughts level, silent.
Thank you, Brother James. Thank you, Brother, for sharing. So what Brother James mentioned was regarding point 3. So maybe we'll finish point 1 first, then we'll move on to point 3. So point 1 here says that we are all reflections in a mirror, all part of the same source. So what this highlights is that if there is, just imagine that the entire space where everything is taking place in is actually you, right? And that and that whatever is happening is including the entire space where it's happening is all a reflection of the one true source, which is Brahman itself. So how do we come to realization of this, that we are in fact not the body, not the mind, but beyond this mind-body complex? So Brother James mentioned quite clearly just now by self-inquiry, right? That's one way of doing it. So now let's move on to the second point here. So Swami says here, the delusion of separation is the main cause, right? The delusion of separation is the main cause why we are not experiencing this truth, which is oneness beyond duality, because the delusion of separation. That means somewhere down the line, we have conditioned our mind to believe that this duality exists. And so our focus on the external forms is seen as a delusion that keeps us from realizing the true self, which is Brahman. So when our mind moves outward, it starts to analyze or catch, because our sense object moves outwards and then it goes to the mind. So when the sense object gets everything around, what happens is that it starts to hog on or attach to things around us. And once it starts to attach the things, to the things around us, or the objects or sense objects around us, then somehow or other, the reality is to a certain extent deluded from the Advaitic point of view. Okay, from the Dvaitic, from different point, that's a different topic, but from the Advaitic point of view, the delusion is established because the mind creates that division, right? And that's because of the sense object which moves outwards. Now, then how do we eliminate this, right? So how do we break this boundary and move to the realization that we are all the reflection and everything is happening within us, right? Then Swami goes on to say this third point, which Brother James mentioned. Sarah? Okay. So Swami goes on to explain this. How do we eliminate the mind or transcend the mind, right? So transcending the mind is no easy job, no easy task. So in this passage here, Swami explains, traditional spiritual practices such as sadhana are seen as insufficient for ultimate realization. The goal is not just a calm mind, but a complete elimination of the thought process itself. So for this to happen, for you to eliminate the thought process itself, you must find a time and space where you can sit quietly and try to of course, first step is you need to develop concentration. Concentration meaning that when if whatever practice that you choose to do, just silent sitting or self-inquiry. So let's just take self-inquiry here on 1880, right? If let's say if your concentration is just like for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, for instance. So you can only do self-inquiry for 10 minutes. And for 10 minutes, most likely your mind will not settle and there'll be so many thoughts coming in the morning. I think you can all agree to that. For the first 10 minutes, nothing much kind of settles. It's like like a tsunami in your mind if you just sit down there for the first 10 minutes. And that is why people are so afraid for this first 10-minute tsunami, that's deterring everyone from sitting down for meditation. So this first 10 minutes tsunami is not necessarily 10 minutes. But the more you get, the more you build your concentration and the more your practice develops, what happens is that the stability of the mind develops, this cultivation starts to fructify. What happens is that you can sit longer, and no matter how many times your mind goes away, you are able to bring back your mind, right? You bring back your attention, sorry. So you keep on bringing back your attention to the sense of who am I? And then you trace it back again, trace it from where these thoughts emerge, right? It's as if like a very physical way of saying it is like now you're looking outside your body, right? So when you close your eyes, you as if you turn your face inwards and you start looking within yourself, right? So and then you trace from where these thoughts are emerging, right? And then every thought which comes, to whom, to what, and then you start to become more and more and more and more silent within yourself, because it's an inward journey. You have to be very patient. You have to be very patient. Not every day will be the same. Some days will be better than the other days. But ultimately, you will come to a state where, like what Brother James mentioned, transcending the mind into a state of silence and bliss. But even that is not something we want to, like, I want to seek to achieve the silence and bliss. So that will build an expectation. And who is that? Who is that who says, I want to achieve this silence and bliss? That is also a form of the ego, right? So you have to be very mindful of how you want to eliminate the mind, because it's very difficult. And once you've really reached that stage of the mind, the source of the thoughts, which is the I thought, or the ahankara, or the ego. Once you reach that, once you've really inwardly located where it is, then from there, once you just, it's as if you take this flashlight and you're going in a dark tunnel to find, okay, where's the ego, where's the ego, where's the ego, and you just become more and more and more and more silent, and then sometimes it comes out and comes out. You keep on going very deep within yourself until you find it, and then just by finding it, you suddenly have the realization that you can go beyond it, and once you go beyond it, then there's nothing else, and this is the transcendental state lah, where some mantras can bring, if you go to TM and transcendental meditation, they'll teach you to use that mantra, and then you can just bring you to that state of silence and bliss. So similarly, by doing self-inquiry also, you can do the same thing. Or you can just even follow your breath. Just ignore everything, just like the Buddhists do in Anapanasati. They don't actually do self-inquiry, or they don't follow mantra, or they don't anything to achieve the silence and bliss. So the Buddhists, they just follow the breath. They just develop the concentration so intense until they let go of the breath and they go into that space of deep and silence where you merge and with one. So, okay. So then, this is all nice and easy, right? And then now, but the issue is the ego. How do we really take it out? Sometimes it's just so difficult to let go of the ego because it's so strong. And this ego is not, just together with all the vasanas that we have carried from our past lives and whatnot. It's just so it's a challenging process. It's a challenging process. And like what Brother James mentioned just now, you can start doing the self-inquiry now. You don't know how many years for you to achieve, to reach that state of silence or to completely eliminate the ego. But that's also not possible as long as you're living and you're talking. How can you eliminate the ego, right? But through this practice, there will emerge another state of consciousness where your presence of I am, or your presence, your pure self, just pure presence or awareness itself, is continuous throughout all the states. Is continuous throughout the sleep, waking, dreaming, all the states. So then there's this one state which will start to emerge, and by just continuing your sadhana, whatever sadhana that you're doing, your inward sadhana, you will be, your awareness will be more established in this fourth stage. And once this happens, the ego will eventually drop slowly. It's just like, you take like the sandpaper, this, like when you want to polish something, you take the sandpaper and it's something like that. It's a process, long process. You take the sandpaper and polish, and slowly let the ego go. And it's not an easy process. So now let's listen to a story shared by Swami's devotee, who is also a very famous baseball player, a cricket player, sorry. So let's listen to his story on how Swami shattered his ego.
Talking about egos, when I was here way back in 1980 at Puttaparthi, when only that round building was there, I was told that Swami wanted me to go to the school, and I was ready. Suddenly I see a car come and Swami is in the car, and I'm saying to myself, oh, Swami himself has come to take me. But again, it was just a little ego feeling at that stage. I was the captain of the Indian cricket team, and with the greatest of respects to all the dignitaries here and those who are maybe watching this, the greatest of respect to them. The captain of the Indian cricket team, captaincy of the Indian cricket team is often referred to as the second most important job in the country after the Prime Minister's job. I'm not saying it, a lot of media refers to it that way. A lot of people refer to it as that way because of how cricket is followed in the country. So I had that ego about me. So I sat in the car, and within seconds that ego was shattered. There I am going towards the school, and there are devotees who are standing by the roadside, standing there in the ashram. Not one person is looking at me. And everybody is doing pranam to Swami, not one person. For someone who was used to having people looking at you, it was such a big come down. And I think Swami in his own way taught me that. He then took me to the school, and there was an assembly. The principal introduced me. Swami was sitting, I was sitting with him. And then after the principal introduced me, he said, and now Sunil will speak on, today is Bakrid, so Sunil will speak on Bakrid. And I'm saying to myself, I am a Hindu, what am I going to speak on Bakrid? So I look at Swami, and Swami has that smile on his face. And with that smile on his face, Swami said, you go there. And I went there, And I don't know, 7, 8, 10 minutes that I spoke, and I still do not have a single recall of what I actually spoke that day. It was when I came back, Swami looked at me and said, "So what?" But it was Swami who had spoken through me. Swami was the one who had done all the talking. And you know what? All these years I was saying to myself, no, I think I'm imagining it. I don't think I did it. I don't think I did it. Till about 4 or 5 years ago, after darshan at Puttaparthi, a young man came to me and he said, "Sir, we really enjoyed your speech on Bakrid when you had come to our school." That was the time I actually believed that I had, or Swami had through me, spoken about Bakrid. But even there, I think what he passed on was the message of love. We are not made the same, and that's for a purpose. Because if we were all made the same, then life would be boring. But Swami wants us to understand. Swami wants us to make the adjustments, to live with people who are not necessarily always like us. And I think that is the biggest challenge that we face today. And that is where we have to surrender ourselves to Swami for his guidance. Because today the world is in a turmoil only because of forces pulling against each other. And we need to make the adjustments, we need to make the adaptations. We need to surrender our ego to be able to live peacefully with everybody else.
Okay, so thank you so much for listening and still being here with us. Now, we have come to understanding the ego, and we are able to finally find out how we can actually go inwards, and Brother James mentioned, and some of the sisters also mentioned how we turn our vision inwards. And then now we are moving towards the ego itself, and this wonderful story shared by Brother Sunil here on how when he stood by the divine itself, his ego was shattered because no one was actually looking at him, and everyone was looking at God incarnate, right? Why would anyone look at anyone else? So similarly, you
Sunil
all would
Gavaskar,
have.
brother, can I say something? Sunil Gavaskar now is one of the
Yeah.
chief commentators in the world test matches, the T20 going on. If you have listened to him talk as a commentator, yeah, his ego is not there because he's sharing it with the 3 others. But this ego, when he talks about ego, see, even to know that you are not the doer, I know I am not the doer, still the ego is there. That ego is very different from the ego which Swami is trying to get us to the very end. That you need, as long as you live, you will have an ego to function in this working world. So that's where the thought process, the earlier slide you put, the mind, a thought comes. I look at a pillow. That's it. I just look. I don't start making it a process. Oh, the pillow is beautiful, it's green in color. That becomes a process which develops your ego. I think Brother Sundar Iyer from USA, who's he's got a lot of YouTube, Swami's devotee, who's running a yoga center also in US. He beautifully says his way of meditation is, as you walk, you just look at the step forward. Just keep looking at the step forward, and walking happens. You don't walk as I am walking. Walking takes place. So that's all for this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, sister. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's how most of our practices in our silent retreats that we have twice a year, once or twice a year, most of our practices are like that. Just observing, just being, just accepting and acknowledging and letting go of thoughts and thinking process itself. So that just like what Brother Sundaraya mentioned, everything happens and the realization starts to dawn within. So here, Swami goes on to mention ego and the illusion of doership. Our identification with the body fuels the ego. The constant feeling of being the doer, enjoyer, and achiever strengthens this ego, right? Like how sometimes we feel that I am the parents of my child, so whatever happens, I'm completely responsible. Of course, you're responsible to a certain extent, but the sense, the deep knowing of surrender has to dawn. And similarly, and when you're enjoying something, right? When time flies and things just moves fast, and then eventually you start, the ego starts to even attach to that, thinking that you are the one enjoying, but staying even silent long enough can tell you that, or can show you, or you can be aware that it is the state of the mind which makes it seem as if enjoyment is taking place. But and even when doing something, just like Sister Purnima quite eloquently mentioned just now, walking just takes place. So does doing takes place, enjoying takes place, achieving takes place. And so when the mind attaches to these actions as it takes place, that is when it becomes a problem and it starts to grow. The snake starts to increase in size and it starts to become more venomous. So now moving forward, then Swami goes on. So now, okay, we know the problem. The problem is because you're attached to the body. And the body is the one which fuels our ego, the aham which fuels our own, this annamaya kosha, and all these koshas are the one which is, causing this issue with this attachment to this, causing the problem. So then Swami goes on, okay, now let's, how to have a limited control over the body. So he goes on to explain the passage uses bodily functions, similarly, like what he mentions here is like heartbeat, breathing, digestions, right? So all of these, your heartbeat, can you control it? Of course, some yogis learn techniques how to stop your heartbeat and still be alive. But normally, people like you and me, can we control it? Of course, we can't, right? How about your breathing? Can you stop breathing? Or maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes? Can you stop breathing for 10 minutes, right? Of course, you can't. Can you stop your digestion process? It just happens. See, so, and he gives other examples. So these examples, which keeps this body-mind complex alive, it's not in your control, right? So these processes are beyond our control, as he mentions here. So this highlights the limitation of human effort. And then he goes on to explain life and death beyond our control. So the passage, the passage here means the actual passage which I've summarized. It further emphasizes our lack of control over birth and death, which are outside our will. So Swami here mentions that when you sit and observe your body, from the sensations to your heartbeat, to your breathing, to your thought process, to the environment, to circumstances which cause certain thought process, which create certain reactions within yourself, and even observing your own bodily function, your movement of the body, And as you keep on observing it over a period of time, and as your detachment grows, your vairagya enhances, and this sense of, as I mentioned just now, the fourth state of consciousness becomes more apparent, and you get established in your witness consciousness. And when that happens, you start to realize that everything is just a happening. Everything is just a happening. From your thoughts, where do your thoughts come from? You know, when you really go deep within yourself, where does it come from? And why did it come at this particular time? What was the sense object attached to? So when you slow down your actions and you go into a more observing mode, like as you are sweeping your floor or washing your dishes, when you, instead of just trying to finish washing dishes as fast as possible and finish, I can go and watch some serial on TV or watch a movie, or go on a phone, get on a call with some friend and chat. Maybe take an extra 10 or 15 minutes when you wash your dishes. Try to be very observant on how the hand is moving, what's this bodily sensation. As you use your soap, what's the difference you feel in between your fingers, and then how does it feel with the soap on, without the soap on. And so as you become more aware or bring full concentration into just washing your dishes in a, and you do it very slowly, just as what Brother Sundar Iyer said about walking happens, washing the dishes also will happen. So similarly, everything, if you put full attention to it, it is just a happening which takes place. It's just that's what Swami mentioned before this. It is the delusion of separation which has somewhat or rather become conditioned in our mind, belief system which is conditioned very deeply. The seed has been conditioned very deeply in our mind, which needs to be removed. So now moving forward, even life and death is beyond our control. So if life and death is beyond our control, and everything in between life and death is also beyond our control, then the only question you should ask yourself is, who am I? Right? Like, and be aware of whatever says, oh, I'm so and so, and I'm this and that, and that's what we are trying to let go. Anyways. So anyone has any questions regarding this passage here?
Sairam,
Sairam, Sister Rajeshwari.
unity and oneness. Without oneness, there's no unity. There's no unity without oneness. Both are very important. The time when we see separation, then start all the confusion and all the upset problem. And then we have to think about death and birth and death. It's not in our control. So the other things are, as you told, not in our control. Just accept life as it comes. For that, you must have a lot of practice and patience in spirituality. For that one, you do silent sitting, meditation. Even yoga helps a lot. Yoga means union with God. Mind and body will get controlled. Because I used to do yoga. My father used to teach me yoga when I was a small girl. 6 to 6:30 we had to do yoga. Then Swami Satchidananda was there. He was famous Swami, who is in USA. He's the founder of the Integral Yoga Institute. And he's a devotee. He's a disciple of Swami Sivananda. And Swami Sivananda, Swami went to him and cured his paralysis or something like that. So he's a great man. So yoga is also helps a lot to control ourselves. So it's very important, yoga also. So that is life. You face whatever comes, you face. But to face, you must have just 5 values and control of everything through these practices. Sairam.
Sairam. Thank you, Sister Rajesh. for sharing that. Anyone else you would like to share? How do you identify your egoic tendencies, or maybe you'd like to share an experience which takes place, which took place?
Hi Ram.
Hi, Ram, sister.
I actually wanted to ask something, and then Auntie Rajeshwari sort of like gave me some answer already. Auntie ended with where she said, when we come across certain situations in our daily life, and then whereby our ego is actually tested, and we kind of like realize at that moment the ego is actually being tested. So Auntie said we have to face it. That means we have to walk through it, similar to what Sunil sir said just now in the video as well. We need to walk through it. We need to face it and challenge our ego sets there. What if at that moment also we can we decide to isolate ourselves or move away from that situation, because we are also aware that we could do that, which is the ego, or which is the control, which is better? Do we need to like face that challenge of our ego being tested there, or do we move away? That means I just want to be silent. I just want to move away from that situation. I rather isolate myself. Which is better for us to do?
Okay, thank you, sister. What do you think, sister?
Swami says life is a challenge, face it. So whatever comes, you have to face it. You can't move, you have to go through that. For that, you need help. That is what whatever Swami's teachings, you have to take it and follow his teaching, so that it will be easy for you. You have to face it. That's all will give you some experience, some it gives you experience, and you know about life better. And in future, you will do better because of that experience.
Yeah. So, Sairam.
Can I say something, brother?
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
go ahead. Purnima,
the
and
tone in which you think or the way you say, I have to accept it, gives a very kind of a very negative kind of a tone. That means you're consciously not looking at it. You can never do that unless you have realized that nothing can be done by you. Unless that realization comes, only then you can face the challenges as saying, whatever comes, I will take it. You know, it is kind of sitting like Humpty Dumpty on the wall, not making a firm resolution. Firm resolution can come only through your personal experience of not experience in your daily life. That has to go on. That's why I said the ego will be there till the rest of the life. You cannot totally do it. But that ego is for a functioning world. For a functioning, I have to say, for example, I have to see a patient. I need that ego. That ego is aham. A lot of people mistake aham with ahamkara. The antakarana, the most subtle part of that consciousness, the Atma, is the aham. That is the ego, which we came across in a few slides. Once we start thinking, I have to accept it, you're putting yourself as an individual, which becomes an ahamkara. I have to accept means there's a subject, there's a predicate, and there's a verb and a noun and all that coming together. So you just do it with total consciousness. Total consciousness. That means you must be aware of that awareness. That awareness has to be there, which is different from the normal awareness which we think. So we have to do our thing. Yes, we have to function in the world, but you cannot do it totally unless you have questioned very deeply and found out actually, like Swami says, who is the one doing it? Like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna is said. Like, thank you so much. Thank you.
Nice.
Also, one more point, very nicely point. I think one more thing, in my opinion or limited opinion, is the fact that You see, when you say ego is being tested, how do you know that the ego is being tested? So the indicators, for example, in a car, petrol, how you know the petrol is getting lower? You look at the dashboard, isn't it? So if you look at the dashboard, and if the meter is going towards, the indicator is going towards E, then you know the petrol is getting to become empty. Or if it's going to be full, then you know it's F is going to be full. Like that, the emotional indicators are very powerful pointers to know to what extent we have the ego. So collectively, if we are being tested, it means that if whether anger has been provoked, arrogance has been initiated, what do you call fear is being there, anxiety is there. All these are, the mother of it is the ego, you see. These are all the little children that comes out. So emotional indicator is a very powerful tool to give us the clue. That's why we have the emotion, to give us an understanding as to where we are at the level of the ego. So once we are already tested means that we know that we have got it. And sister is right, Sister Purnama is very right, because without ego, you cannot function in this world, by the way. That's why the Hindu gods and the goddesses have got 4 hands to say the chitta, ahamkara. Without ahamkara, without this aham inside us, we will not be able to function. For example, I want to work for Swami's mission. That is aham. You need that. If not, I like to come to this study circle. I want to come for this study circle. You have to have that. If that is not there, then we may not have that. So aham is not all bad. It's something to promote us, is to provoke us. Even Swamijis who have realized in the Himalayas, once they realize, why don't they disappear? Why do they come back and start a mission and all that? It's because the aham is pushing them to express and spread the love and vibration that they achieve, to infuse it into all other people. So it's important that we know the difference. Whilst that is promoting us to go into the world, it is critical that we will embrace and that we will see the world, that we will see, interact with people. So this is why the previous slide that has been shown, okay, then you find an indicator. What is that? Unity. So as we go in our spiritual life, the differences must become less and less. Everything you must see it as homogeneous oneness. Even if there's someone opposite side is coming to us and telling us something which is really opposing, then the wisdom in us will tell us, why is this person now standing in front of me? What is the necessity for him to say those things? Why is my emotion getting reacted like that? See, there is a higher wisdom that comes in to regulate your spirit of oneness. This is how we should think. This is how we should move forward. In that spirit, if we are doing, then we find there will be a lot of peace and happiness. Otherwise, it will become a philosophy class. Oneness is good, Swami has said that, but how do you make it practical? I think that is what is very important. Otherwise, spirituality will become, we will just follow something without even understanding. There's one new movie in the Netflix, just came back 2 days ago. If you have time, maybe you can catch it. It's a true story. It's called Maharaj. It's very powerful story about a social reformer that changed the way in which religion and spirituality is viewed. It's a true story. It happened many years ago, but it challenges the orthodox beliefs, challenges the orthodox way of doing certain things, and people just misinterpret. People just misinterpret those teachings and follow a certain way of doing things. And then this reformer comes and changes the way in which they should see things. So like that, sometimes when we look at it in a certain way, we follow certain things without understanding or without realizing that there is a deeper implications of all these spiritual things that Bhagavan is actually talking about. You see, even this particular slide that is there, if you look at it, very nicely, Sabitan has illustrated this, is very beautiful. Actually, if you look at it, the intensity of the doership is right at the top. But as you keep on going down, something, eventually the doership gets to be loosened, gets the concept of the doership becomes much, the intensity of the doership is getting reduced. Second point is, hey, hello, many things happening in your life, heartbeat, are you in control? No. Finally, when it comes to the final part, hey, your own life is not in your control. Actually, the doership intensity is going down, down, down. Finally, you come to the third point. Hey, this is the level in which we can lose. Then that's why Swami said two things we must never forget: death and God. Immediately, the doership is removed. Once the doership, then you start untangling, detachment takes place, vairagya comes in, all these things comes in, and that helps you to move on in life, helps us to move on in life in a good way. So it's a nice, beautiful way in which how we should live in this world, both this subject of that oneness and this egoism, because this is the biggest problem is this one, this particular thing, because it's even rishis and great people also suffered of this nature, because it cannot be reduced or cannot be eliminated. It has to be inside to continue living. But there's a danger in that it suddenly can become overconfident. Suddenly it becomes the notion of that you are the doership thing comes in. It's unconsciously, it just comes in like that, and many people can fall. See, in life, early, it's 8-lane road. After that, it becomes 4-lane. After that, as you keep on going, it becomes 2-lane. Then it becomes 1 lane. Then it becomes only one small little path. Then slowly, the path becomes narrower. Then slowly, it will become like a rope. Then slowly, you're walking on a string, So the path that you're walking becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then how we balance that is what life is all about. It's like a snake and ladder game. Every time you can fall. It's a very, very dicey thing where we need the more and more vigilance is necessary, which is why in this particular spiritual life, the vigilance of our mind must be extremely taken into control. That's why the sadhana practice, that's why reading of literature, that's why, because this has to be under our control, completely under our control. And that also can only come because we have got the grace of Swami to reach him there. So finally, at the end of the day, it is very, it can be very challenging also. That's why the easiest way is, oh, Baba, I don't know anything. I'm totally at your mercy. I do not have much wisdom, nor do I have all these things that I need to do. All I want to do is do your work. That's all. I just want to do your mission. I want to do your work. Because that's, I found is the easiest. Because once you start focusing on his work and trying to do his work, we did not worry. You will find that you will naturally have that thing because you're already doing his work. So that increases the appetite for spirituality, that increases your passion for spirituality, and more importantly, that makes you become very aware, because once you're doing his work, then you want it to be good. You completely control your own, the anger, hatred, all those other emotions comes in, because when you want to reach him, you want to reach him in the best possible manner. So being in the mission also, then you also have the notion that the ego, because when you live in the material world, sometimes you can get tainted. But when you're doing his work and his mission, there's a greater chance of not getting, stained. You continuously do. Even that also, sometimes you can develop mission. So it's like you can sing bhajan song, and then you can suddenly develop a notion of how you sang, So it's a very thin strand where you can fall on this side, fall on that side. But that's why we need all of us to be together. Because that's why Swami said, whatever happens, never leave my organization. Why he says that is because only with other people in the fraternity, which can help us and guide us, and also tell us whether we're improving or not improving, So these are the things that really make spirituality really a exciting climb, and exciting, challenging climb to reach the top.
Thank you. I think we are right to the end. It's 9:58, so maybe we can we just say one last thing.
How many slides you have? After this, how many slides you have?
I don't think we finished today, Lala. Have to can continue next
I know.
week.
How many more you have? A lot more? I feel, Sabitan, I feel that this topic, because this is a real practical topic. Everybody goes through these exercises. Everyone can see. So therefore, we need to catch it. So if, for example, sometimes when we are dealing in life, suddenly you'll become angry, for something. Okay, that moment is okay it's okay to be angry, but at that moment, okay, what is it that made you angry? What triggered you? Then, okay, that gives you a spotlight on, oh, I see, I got this ego also. So because he said something, I got angry. So therefore it's effect. You see, I caught my ego already. That means I'm egoistic. So actually I must thank the person who made me angry, because that person reminded me that I got ego also. So like that, we can have beautiful moments to capture this kind of things within us. So we can catch the thief, so to speak, you see. Oh yeah, I had this, man, I had that, like that. So it's exercise can be there. Anyway,
Yeah.
next week, some of us will be all leaving for, tomorrow we're leaving for a conference next week. So next week, so Billy, how this, are we?
Yeah, so I think we have a break. Next week, we don't have any satsang next week. What do you think?
Yeah, majority of those participants are going to be there in Kenya, then I think we might postpone it to the following Tuesday.
Okay. So, okay, Sabitan, that means we just stop here at this point. We continue the next session, but it's good if we can deepen this part, that the last week's one, the last slide, which is the oneness part, because the oneness also is very important. I realize the oneness part is where when we are writing when you do the Mahabharata story, you find the spirit of the oneness in Mahabharata is something happened somewhere at some point, but it gets reflected somewhere else in some other portion, and you'll find there's a link everywhere. And so the ability to get to see the link connecting everything else is that oneness that you see. That means everything happened to us for a bigger, for a greater good. So that kind of realization will enable us to know that we are not just a victim of circumstances. We must understand that whatever that happens, there is a sequence of things that happen. This has happened for this particular reason. Once we have that kind of wisdom, you find there'll be peace, there'll be forgiving, there'll be more and more that spiritual qualities will start emanating in us. So I think maybe we should have deeper reflection on this too. So because it's very powerful, because all of us have we have to do in this world. So the reflecting on the doership. So it's maybe next session we can go deeper in this too. Okay, so very, very interesting, very nice and beautiful session we had today. We hope that Baba blesses us and continue to walk this path with greater enthusiasm. And, we must, whatever said and done, by the time we finish our life, all of us must experience the 10 to the power of 18 quintillion happiness. That is the highest bliss level. The bliss level, they calculated it to be 10 to the power 18. So we must aspire for that particular blissful experience all of us achieve. Okay. So till we meet again, back again, Sai Ram, till we meet again next week, we'll just take a short break and come back in 2 weeks' time. Okay. So Sai Ram, and thank you so much. Till we meet again, Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Saram, everyone.
Saram.
Thank you, Sai Ram.